people know the owl is on, so Doc, you'll be on the screen.
Thank you. All right, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Right. Good evening. I call to order the meeting of the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee on Thursday, February 1st, 2024 at 7 p.m. and invite you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Just like to let everyone know that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed, and I'm not sure that she's actually here yet, but we have an school committee member who will be attending remotely, though I don't see her yet on the screen, Jen Carr. Okay. Julia, would you please read our land acknowledgement?
The Hamilton Wenham Regional School District would like to acknowledge the Massachusetts tribe, the tribe of indigenous peoples from whom the colony, province, and Commonwealth of Massachusetts have taken their name. We would like to pay our respect to the ancestral bloodline of the Massachusetts tribe and their descendants who still inhabit historical Massachusetts tribe territories to this day.
Thank you. All right, next up on, we have citizens' comments. It doesn't appear to me that we have any in the room. Is that correct? Okay. Eric, is there anyone on Zoom who looks as if they're interested in? Nope, no one on Zoom. Okay. In that case, seeing no one, I will close citizens' comments at 7:02 p.m. Next up, I think it's David Frankel. Would you be willing to read a portion of the school committee protocols?
Certainly would. When making decisions, school committee members will keep an open mind, utilising the best information available. Is this working, by the way? Just in case. Let me start again. When making decisions, school committee members will keep an open mind, utilising the best information available, including research, best practices, public input and financial considerations. Members will debate issues and not each other. Members will analyse carefully and debate fully whenever necessary prior to making decisions.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
And next, Trent, would you read a portion of the mission statement, please?
The Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee will lead and inspire a district that empowers administrators to seek innovation, responsiveness, and creativity in all aspects of district operations.
Thank you. Okay, next up is the consent agenda. Does anyone have any items from the consent agenda that they would like to have held? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Secretary, would you make a motion on that, please?
I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee accept the consent agenda as written.
Second. Second by Amy. I think we still don't have Jen, is that correct? Okay, so if we do have our remote member join, we'll have to take roll call votes, but until that point, we're going to do it the old-fashioned way. All those in favor? And that is unanimous of the 6 members present, and the consent agenda passes. All right. Next up is the MSBA statement of interest for the high school roof. Tom.
Tom, you need to get on, you need to, okay. 1 second. There you go.
Thank you for having me here tonight. Tonight, I am asking for approval to file a statement of interest for the Accelerated Repair Program through the Massachusetts School Building Authority for full replacement of the high school roof. This will be the third time that we've submitted an application for this repair. We submitted in 2020, 2021, 2022. There was a moratorium placed on the program in 2023, and the MSBA recently restarted the program. Within the application, it details the existing conditions, links to reports such as infrared testing of the insulation underneath, which deems that there are wet areas throughout the roofing system. Also, lab reports that tested the tensile strength and the thickness of the membrane, along with other information such as communications from teachers on its impact to the learning environment. And I ask for your approval for this important project. Within the application, and this is new since we submitted our last applications, is a document called the Closed Schools document. Because we are now in the pipeline for the elementary school project, and there is a possibility of consolidation within that project, we do have to fill out this form, and I filled out the form. It's in the back end of the exhibit, stating such that we're not sure at this juncture whether or not we're going to close the school because the building committee has not made a determination on the preferred option. But I still think it's wise to include that in there. So the first motion that I would look for, the first approval, for full transparency, is that approval for the superintendent and for the chair of the school committee to sign the closed schools document. The next vote is the long one that we have had to read for all of our statements of interest. And this would have to be signed by the superintendent and the school committee chair. The application would have to be signed by the superintendent and the chair of the school committee. Happy to answer any questions regarding the existing conditions of the roof and the impact it has not only on the learning environment, but also on our maintenance team.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Given that there's been a lot of leaking, has there been consequential mold issues? And how have we assessed that?
What we would do, we are quick to respond with any leaks. So that would be, removing any saturated ceiling tiles as the roofs come in, roof leaks come in. Haven't noticed any mold growth, and we would inspect every leak for such.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that? In the event that, I know this is several steps down the road, but in the event that we were to be approved for the new roof project, because that's not an unreasonable question, that if in other words, if they were to discover mold, would that remediation be a part of the project? Because that seems like those two things could often go together, leaking roofs and...
Yes, it's my understanding that would not be a reimbursable expense for the mold mitigation. Usually it's limited to the insulation, the membrane, anything associated above the structure within that program.
Thank you. Trent?
Why were the previous applications denied?
That's a great question. So the MSBA collects all of the applications for the Accelerated Repair Program. And based on the amount of funding that they have for the program, they then come up with the required minimum age. So we were not accepted before, for example, because 1 year you'd have to have a 29-year-old roof. We were at year 26, or year 25. Another year, the age was 31, and then we were 27. So that's the reason why we weren't accepted before. They'll make a determination because the program includes roof, windows, and boilers. And in the last program, they removed the window piece and only went boilers and roofs. So they actually collect all the applications and then come up with the age based on available funding for the projects.
And just, I know you said, but just, was there just 1 year that they froze the program, or 2 years?
It was about a year and a half, but it was one cycle worth.
One, that was my question.
One
1 year that
cycle.
we weren't able to apply because it was frozen.
Believe, yes, yes.
Yeah, they froze it, took the 75 million that they have for that program and moved it into the school building program because schools were getting hit with acceleration costs that were out of control.
We were, very excited that the program reopens. Of course, we're always fighting that age gap, whether or not our roof is old enough. We're at year 28 right now.
Okay, so there are the two, you're looking for two different votes here, correct?
That's correct.
All right. You want to start us off with a motion?
Sure. Excuse me. I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee authorize the chair of the school committee and the superintendent to submit the required closed schools document as part of the MSBA Accelerated Repair Program Statement of Interest.
A second.
Second by Amy Kuhnberger. Are there questions? I think I know, but I'm looking at the exhibit that you have. It looks like it's the document called Closed Schools Information. That's presented here. This is the document that we're talking about, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Okay. I'm just looking at it, seeing as I'm the one that's going to be signing it. All right. Is there any further discussion on that? Okay, looks like we're ready to vote. All those in favor? That is unanimous of the 6 members present, and the motion passes.
Thank you. And the second vote is there is a separate exhibit within the agenda. It's a long one, but it is required by the Massachusetts School Building Authority in its form.
One second, while I open it, everyone is clicking over me.
Little eye test and see if you can read it off of there.
I'm happy to bring my computer to whoever wants to read it.
I'm going to read, I keep opening the wrong one. Number 2, language.
Also, I'm wondering, do you mean to shift the language a little bit? Like I move, is it a motion or?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
It just says like has voted to authorize.
That's that.
And the vote language is straight from the MSBA.
Is it?
They require exact.
Yeah.
It was the same thing for the building project, and if you don't,
Is the
they
vote-
make you do it again.
Is the vote language
Do we
in
move
the
to
exhibit?
accept the language?
It is. It's in the second item, the second exhibit.
The exhibit. No,
Second exhibit. I'm in the
Second exhibit, and it's form of vote, it's under form of vote, and then it's in a box.
Oh, okay, all right. It's like, I was looking for that
Yeah,
slide.
yeah, no, it doesn't say that, yeah.
Is this resolved? Okay, here we go, I've got it. I'm sorry about that. Resolved, having convened in an open meeting on February 1st, 2024, prior to the SOI submission closing date, Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee of the Hamilton Wenham Regional School District, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the Statement of Interest form dated January 26, 2024, for the Hamilton Wenham Regional High School located at 775 Bay Road in Hamilton, Massachusetts, which describes and explains the following deficiencies and the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the replacement, renovation, or modernization of school facility systems such as roofs, windows, boilers, heatings, and ventilation systems to increase energy conservation and decrease energy-related costs in a school facility, and hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting the statement of interest form, The Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the Hamilton Wenham Regional School District to filing an application for funding with this Massachusetts School Building Authority.
Is there a
Second.
second by Julia Campbell? Thank you for that.
I love that it's all one sentence. Those are like my
I did not,
At least it doesn't have numbers, like long numbers in it.
my high school history papers right here.
wow, all right. I did not even notice that it was only one sentence. I was.
Oh, I did.
That-
That
I'm
was
sure.
waiting for the
You were
breath.
not able to breathe. Thank you for that. All right, does anyone have any further questions on this?
No.
Any discussion? All right, and we still do not have Jen, is that correct?
Nope.
Okay. All right, all those in favor? And that is unanimous of the 6 members present, and the motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm staying.
Yeah, he's getting to do more. Okay. Next up,
Yes.
the 5-year capital plan.
Thank you. As part of the district goals, one of the deliverables was a capital improvement plan. And I wanted to alert everybody that what I have on the screen is directly taken out of the exhibit that is within your packet. I wanted to blow it up for key points for this meeting and for anybody that is tuned in to HWCAM watching. Vinny and I, were tasked with this goal at the beginning of the year, and, we really, it was my opinion that we should really look deeply at process versus just a list of projects. We want to give a lot of credence to the process. We have some big-ticket items. We have a community that pays attention to the details. So I think it's very important that we wrote a long and thoughtful process to get to important projects down the road. I've touched upon benefits of a capital improvement plan throughout the process document that you have within your agenda. It is a long-range planning document that will help extend the useful life of our buildings and also protect our assets. A consequence of not having a CIP, I hate to read from the slide, but I think it is important, is it includes project backlogs and also would prevent us from executing projects because we would have too big of a backlog. And that's kind of what we are facing now with our facilities. So as a capital expense is defined within our regional agreement, any project or major purchase or addition, renovation that is more than $25,000. Later on within my presentation, I'll touch upon one of the recommendations that we have to address this. One of the questions that came up at the Capital Finance Subcommittee, does this include if we buy $26,000 worth of computers or smart boards? It's my own personal opinion that that's not the case. It would have to have a long, extended, useful life for it to be considered a capital expense. One of the things that I've observed in my 5 years here in the district is that we have stakeholders in the community, whether it be from the Hamilton Capital Committee or the Wenham Capital Committee, that are asking us, yearly, all right, what is the school doing for their capital plan this year? That being said, and so it's not one or two people doing it in isolation, made the recommendation to the Capital Finance Subcommittee to set up a separate committee strictly for capital improvements. I forecast maybe having 1 or 2 meetings per year, roughly in the fall, to screen the lists. This is a sample list of the committee that I did present to the Capital Finance Subcommittee. School committee representative, superintendent of schools, assistant superintendent of finance and administration, the director of maintenance, facilities, and operations, director of technology, town of Hamilton representative, and a town of Wenham representative. Not only is it important for their input, but also so they can communicate back to their respective committees and boards. So to just touch on the process, and I really do hate reading from slides, but that's, I think that the devil is in the details within the document. So District Budget Responsibility Center administrators, that is principals and directors, would annually prepare capital requests using a form that we created. It would require documentation, photos, and long-term educational benefit. The CIP committee would review these requests and prioritize them. They would then present it to the Capital Finance Subcommittee, and they would be the ones to dictate how much funding is available and be able to move projects forward as part of the annual budget process. School committee would adopt the CIP as part of the annual budget process, much as you do with every other line item within the budget. The budget and/or debt exclusion is voted at annual town meeting as part of our process. We would then procure and execute the projects and restart that annual process. I included a sample list, and within the document you'll find that, it's my opinion that we should, have a rolling capital improvement plan, so we're not trying to forecast 5 years out, waiting for that and then starting from scratch. Annually, we would add projects on to keep this thing rolling. What you see in the sample, and I consider us to kind of be in a capital purgatory place right now with the elementary school project in motion. You'll see a lot of items here for Bucher, Cutler, and Winthrop. That may change based on what the building committee recommends as the preferred option for a construction project. And finally, I came up with 3 recommendations. As the district is looking at the regional agreement, we feel that it would be wise to increase the cost threshold from $25,000 to $100,000. This aligns with procurement law for the state of Massachusetts and also takes into account inflation over the years. Another recommendation is, and I know it's easier said than done to make a recommendation like this, but to fund an annual appropriation of at least $500,000 to address ongoing capital needs. Number 3, adopt this process that I presented as a rolling capital improvement plan. Priorities change, infrastructure needs rapidly evolve, and it's important to revisit these needs on a rolling basis. So I am open for any questions that the committee may have.
Okay. Julia?
I just have a comment. I want to say that I think that this addresses some of the issues that were brought up at the quintuple board meeting that we heard. So I was in the meeting where you presented this and approved it to bring to the full committee. But there were issues of what's on the horizon. Are there big capital projects coming up? Like, where are we forecasting? So I think, and that was from the Hamilton and Wenham select boards and finance committees. So I think this will address that going forward, so everyone is sort of on the same page and can see what's on the horizon. So I fully support this.
Trent?
For this committee, because they're going to be evaluating lots of potential projects and then forwarding to the finance subcommittee their recommendations. Is there going to be a charge in any way providing guiding principles in the decision-making process?
That's a great question. I mean, I think that we should always reflect back on, our district norms and values, and and reflect on our strategic plan. I think that should be one of the foundations that we use as we're evaluating projects.
David?
Yeah, Tom, so that we know what we're voting for, is it possible to have a good deal more for the substantial items, justification? This is a description. This is what I think this is going to be. This is what it does. This is the benefits that it would produce. I think that would be very helpful. Otherwise, we're just looking at a list of numbers. The other thing is, given that a significant portion, other than the roof, will be about HVAC systems. Can we have some HVAC experts, because I don't know that anybody on that list is, I don't consider myself one, come in and make an instrumented evaluation of the current performance of the system, which may be improvable just by tuning, but then identify gaps. This is the sort of thing that your favourite company, Johnson Controls, does for other schools.
Yep.
And it's at a very reasonable cost. And apparently it doesn't have to go out to bid because of an arrangement we have.
Yep, I mean, if we're just touching on HVAC, and it also applies to any electrical upgrades, any major project that would, exceed, in my opinion, $100,000, we would need engineering drawings and architectural design to implement those projects. We wouldn't just put out, for a bid document, we need $500,000 worth of improvements, go at it. We would have to have engineering done for those.
Sure.
It's my opinion, and it may differ from others, that, if we would need to secure funding before it would be worthwhile bringing in engineering to do those designs. Otherwise, we're just bringing in people to design, and then the designs sit on a shelf.
Yeah, I'm talking about pre-engineering. This is more like the doctor putting the stethoscope on, is trying to examine what's your current state, and then suggesting what treatments might be possible before you actually get into designing the treatment. And that would help us decide the priority of this, because otherwise it's really, how do you make that timing decision? Do you
Yeah, I
build a
think we
new
do have the
school?
expertise within the district to determine useful life expectancy of certain systems. And that would be a contributing factor, right? Because we don't want catastrophic breakdown of equipment.
That's one
so-
parameter.
Yeah, so there are pieces that, we can use to inform the decision-making. I'm not a mechanical engineer, but I can tell you that we have equipment that is well past its useful life throughout the district, and we should start planning. And the list that I presented in draft form within this document has order of magnitude pricing that, many districts use in order to calculate a budget number of what we should expect. And, I think that's the best way to forecast. But if we were to bring in consultants for every single building system, we would probably go through the entire maintenance operating budget every single year.
Yeah, no, I was thinking of something far less expensive, but that would be very informative of the current state of the equipment. And I'm led to believe of the order of 5,000 per school. And I think I've shared the deliverables with Eric, who I hope shared them with you. And it was, I think, Eric's belief that it needed to go out to bid, but I found out today that's not necessarily so. It's not. Happy to share that information with you.
David?
I have a couple things to say. One is sort of just jumping off what was just said right there. Excuse me, because I think it's really important to sort of speak out, even though it's a real quiet room tonight. I'm sure there's thousands of people watching at home.
We hope.
But, the idea of, even though we're the elected officials in the room, right, and we're here for a reason, we all come in here with certain knowledge bases and skill sets, and we try to make the best decision for, with the information that we have. But I think it's important for us to sort of just remind everybody, but that we also realize we are not the experts, right? So that when we do need to sort of take that next step, we rely on the experts in the room to again, as you really put, distinctly, like, you're beyond, useful life on some of our projects without having to be a mechanical engineer. And at that next point, we will then hire the appropriate expert to take care of that, right? And I say that, in regards to this project here, in regards to the other projects that are going on in town, right? And the other thing I like here is this idea of the, order, these estimates, right? These are just general estimates in order to budget, right? These are not estimates that we've gone out to bid for, right? That there are two different things. And I think that can't be stated enough, that again, as the expert in the room, it's the round number to give to us to help us budget, to then say, okay, well, we can find this funding and then go out to bid and find out where that exact price is, right? And then who the best vendor is for that. Excuse me. So that's number one. Number two, I would love to see a couple of these pullouts of just the Cutler and the Winthrop projects, just for us to take into our school building meetings, right? Because you're just sitting here looking at, $8 million for Winthrop and a couple of projects here, right? So the math, right? $1.5 million right here for 3 small projects at Cutler, right? I think as we go further with these larger projects, talking about the schools, people really have to understand, what our cost is to maintain what we have, and that there is a reason why we are looking at these projects, because while those numbers may seem scary at first, right, the idea is, that in the long run, we are producing a much better learning environment that's going to, have up-to-date systems that are going to, create better learning environments and take care of our students for longer term, because we do have these, these systems that are on the point of, of breakdown, and that they are measured in the, millions of dollars. So that is important. I think that we should definitely pull those out. The third thing I wanted to say, which I actually noticed in here, when you were first talking about the idea of what you consider a capital project, the first thing that came to mind is I actually think our capital project in our regard is written out in the regional agreement. I am not a regional agreement expert or whatever, but I did like that you actually did address it there, because I do think if we are going to go to the table, with this and really open up the regional agreement, that these are the types of things that we want to be thinking about on our end, right? Because right now, that $25,000 threshold, I know, is, handcuffs, or like really handcuffs a lot of what we can do, because, as we know, we can't replace a bathroom in our home for 25 grand, so, moving that up in scale really, really makes it difficult to do anything significant within the district. So I really like that you had that addressed in here.
If I can just add one more comment too, is anything on the list that was presented really just keeps things steady state, keeps the doors open. I don't feel that there's any luxuries. Those are just, important, necessary steps that we need to take to keep the doors open within the district, avoiding catastrophic failure.
Thank you.
Yeah, just one final comment. I think the only the end of life of equipment is very important, but it's not the only criteria for making capital improvements, because even if our current equipment was brand new and working perfectly, it's considered inadequate for the schools. It's of a vintage that's not suitable. So consideration should be given to supplemental kind of equipment that could help address the shortfall that the current equipment delivers even before its end of life. And I don't get the sense that that yet has been factored into our planning.
I think that's a luxury of long-term planning, though, isn't it?
Well, it's, I don't know about a luxury, it's part of long-term planning.
Well, but like, right now, you put out the immediate dumpster fire, right? But then when you have the luxury of planning long-term, then you can say, okay, well, these are the things that are end of life that need to get done right now, but here's the stuff that, we'd really like to prioritize if we can move it this way.
Yeah. If the end of life is right now, absolutely. But is that true for Buca, for example?
Right.
Or-
I mean, but I don't think that's sort of, we're not in the weeds here. I think that's sort of what we're arguing. I
I've
think
just
if
laid out the
anything,
principle, really.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
if anything, you're just supporting the need, right, to actually have this plan in place.
Oh, absolutely. No question.
Okay. Other people?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We're not asking for a vote on this, right?
Do we need to vote the
No,
CIP?
And just, the capital finance did review this
Yes.
ahead, right? So
And we
yeah.
voted to approve bringing it to this committee.
Yeah.
So I don't know what
I
we now
don't think,
need to do.
I don't think you're looking for a vote, right? Or are you?
I think we were looking to form the CIP
Yeah.
officially.
Yeah, I mean, I think also as since it is a deliverable of our goals, I mean, perhaps a vote to accept it as presented.
Right, which will then allow the formation of the CIP. If you just accept the capital plan as presented tonight, then that allows him to start that group.
So was that the recommendation of the capital?
That's the recommendation of the capital planning committee, as I understand it, right, Trent?
Okay, good. I'm glad to clear that up. So,
We agreed to vote on it, that we approved it, but we wanted to bring it to the
so
full.
I guess maybe it makes sense perhaps for capital planning to make a motion here, if that's what, and does Eric and Tom think that that would be useful? Yeah,
Yeah, okay. I move that we accept the 5-year capital plan as presented. That doesn't mean necessarily 100% funding everything. I think we should be clear. Does that mean that, funding everything?
all right, well, you haven't gotten.
Okay, now I shouldn't be clear.
You have not gotten a second yet, so you can
Okay.
just hold on.
The capital improvement plan process.
Yeah,
I
the
would be happy,
process.
But not the plan, because there is no plan. Yeah, there's just
Right.
a rough draft without a lot of documentation to support it.
So I guess.
The plan is to, as I understood it, was to create this committee that would dive even deeper into these projects
I think
Prioritize.
I would.
and prioritize them.
I would give the superintendent, authorize the superintendent to create a capital improvement. What do we want to call the group? Capital improvement,
Committee, or,
CIP.
hold on.
the CIP committee?
Yeah.
Yep, that's what this document calls it.
To CIP committee to produce and prioritize a 5-year district capital plan.
To produce a 5-year capital plan,
Yeah.
right, which will then come to
Produce
the
a
committee.
Does that feel like that's going to meet
Then
your
come to the
needs?
committee to approve it.
No?
once it's- Right.
We want the committee vote and then just giving them the power to create the committee and.
Yeah, if you authorize the creation of the committee, and the committee's gonna work annually to gather projects and then
It's gonna be rolling.
prioritize them.
Right,
So
so that's
it's
why I had
literally every
produce a
year.
prioritize.
I wonder if it's authorizing the superintendent to create the CIP committee as outlined in the capital improvement plan process. I don't know,
Committee
rather than putting up the 5-year,
as outlined.
just a suggestion.
Just a question
Sure.
that will
Yep,
demonstrate
we
that
don't
I
have
don't
any
know
motion on the
things.
table, so go ahead.
Are the subcommittees delineated in the bylaws?
This subcommittee, what are you talking about,
Well, if this is a new subcommittee, and if the subcommittees are generally delineated in the bylaws, then we would probably have to move
I
for a
actually
bylaws
don't
change.
believe this would be a subcommittee because it would have only, it would only
This
have
would be
one.
sort of like the building committee, the school planning committee.
Yeah,
It would be like a
very similar
commu-
to a committee within the district, like, study the start time. We're gonna probably have a committee do that, but it won't be a subcommittee of this group. Subcommittees of the school were voted on at the beginning of last term.
Right.
And there's only the 3 that exist, the negotiation subcommittee, the capital finance subcommittee, and then the policy and legislature committee.
You are correct. If we wanted to create another subcommittee, we
Yeah.
would have to vote on creating it.
Vote on
Yes.
another one. But this would be basically run out of my office.
Just one
One school
school
committee
committee
member.
member
One school
on
committee
this.
member, yeah.
I looked at this as an advisory committee under the superintendent of schools.
This committee is gonna make recommendations to currently your subcommittee.
To the capital.
You and
All
Trent and
right,
Jen.
David, do we think we've got
I
a,
think I got something.
okay.
That's a good question.
Are you going to share it with us?
Sentence.
Is it as long as the last one that you?
Yeah, soup,
All one sentence.
all one sentence.
One sentence.
Maybe an M dash.
Okay. I vote that, oops. I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee vote, excuse me, to have the superintendent create a CIP committee as outlined in the capital improvement plan as presented tonight.
Second.
Okay. Are there any questions?
I wonder why I have so many words for such a short sentence.
I don't know, I guess my only question is to Tom and Eric, did you feel like that met the needs that you're
Yeah, that's
looking for?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, this is just I guess we should vote first, then I have a question. All right. Any other?
Ask questions and then
Yeah.
vote.
'Cause you
Well,
have
my
questions.
question is, when would you anticipate to get this committee started? What's your vision?
There was a timeline listed within the
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
exhibit.
I
and
remember
we
that,
would-
actually.
And we would end up following that timeline, so I'm guessing it would
I
be
remember. It had months.
sometime in August and September.
Yeah, okay,
And that aligns with your budget calendar as well, so
okay,
we took that into consideration.
okay. All right. Anything else? All right, looks like we're ready to vote. All those in favor? That is unanimous of the 6 members present, and the motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay. Next up is the Memorial Garden support, letter of support. This, if you look at the exhibit there, it has an explanation, and then there's a draft of a potential letter. Sure, go ahead, yep.
So, I think we all know Deirdre Parada. She and some members of the Garden Club in Wenham are taking this project on and submitting to the CPC of Wenham to try and get a little over $50,000 to redo the garden that's on the other side of the central office building. So it's like literally on that far side of the central office building. There's been a couple stabs at it through the years, and it just hasn't come to fruition. They figure with a little infusion of money and the garden club's understanding of what would go there best and what makes sense. I think it's a great project because when it is open for business, if you will, kids are out there, teachers bring their classes out there. We have a bus driver that picks apples there every fall, so it's just, there's a lot of people that come in and out of the space. It's just tough to keep it in shape, and this, I think this grant to the CPC in Wenham will support it, so all they're asking is that the school committee support it as part of their application. And essentially, I just wrote a draft letter here for Dana to sign, to just acknowledge the support of the committee.
Love it.
Okay, any questions?
Do they have a plan for the following chunks of snow and ice that?
The very, very loud
Someone came to my office the other day. It felt like it.
Yeah, it's pretty scary.
I love the idea. This is probably the
Yeah, I love
third
the
time
idea
I've seen this go by me in the school committee at some stage. Like, it is really nice when it's, they get a chance to get it operational. So it'd be really nice if, we could actually get a long-term solution there.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, looks like we're ready for a vote. Did you have a question?
I just
Yep.
wanted to point out within the document, there's an idea for maintenance. I highlighted it and it went away, of course, but they plan to request that the contractors who bid for the construction of the garden agree to 3 years of maintenance as their donated contribution, which I think is a really nice idea. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah,
I thought that was cool.
okay. I don't think we have a motion, right? Do we?
No.
Okay. Do we have a motion already? No?
No.
Okay.
I'm just trying to think of what the motion would be.
I think they're just looking
Support
for
the-
us to.
Support the
sup-
application.
Yeah,
Application.
and it's that letter that is,
Right. I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee, excuse me, approve the letter as written in our agenda, excuse me, supporting the Wenham Garden Club in the maintenance, I'm trying to think of the proper word.
Request
renovation,
for renovation?
Excuse me?
renovation.
Renovation, there we go, of the Karen Wolf Memorial Garden at the Bucher Elementary School.
Second.
Second by Amy Coomber. All right. And is there any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor? And that is unanimous of the 6 members present, and the motion passes.
If anyone was wondering what the delay was, I kept opening the wrong exhibit, like repeated.
All right, I will sign and send off that letter of support. Okay. Next to you, Eric, I think. You're going to
Yes.
start off the communication plan.
So the exhibit tonight here is the draft communication plan that we had written about in our strategic plan and also in the district goals for this year, with a deadline to be completed by the end of January. Intention here tonight is to bring it to the committee, get some feedback, but I'm also going to combine this conversation with the next E in the new business, update on communications and branding, because as you may remember, earlier in the year, the committee voted to have committee member Kuhnberger do the branding part of this. So she's currently doing that and has till the end of this year to get the branding part done. So you'll notice almost in the dead center of the plan, there's a spot where we'll add the branding pieces of the puzzle and to really fill out the plan itself. And I think the idea for us is to continue to build our relationships within our community, so that people, not only school people, kids who have, parents who have kids in schools, but also people whose kids may have gone off to college already, or they don't have kids in the district anymore, or they've kind of moved into town but don't know about the school district. So really continuing to tie things to our goals, our values, and our core values, and then really trying to be more community-centered. I'm trying to work with some outside groups now to figure out ways to do outreach beyond the school system, because there are, there's so many more people in the community but don't necessarily know what's happening. And then improving our use of technology, kind of constantly improving our technology use, and our learning each year about what people are using. One of the things I learned recently is more of our elementary parents use Instagram than our secondary parents. So it's like, okay, if I want to get a message out to elementary parents, I can use Instagram and get it out there fairly quickly. And this is for, covers also internal communications, even building communications between, say principals and staff, or staff members, and then, continuing to listen to the community, continuing to use the feedback to grow and get better. It lists out some target audiences, and both internal and external, and then some of the goals that came up with along the way, really to communicate more effectively by staying in line with our district core values. The core values should always be a center of what we're doing. Should be at the center of everything we're doing, no matter where we're moving towards. Consistent messaging, really helping people to know that, this is where we're going and this is what we're doing, continuing to say, these are our core values, this is our strategic plan, this is how we move forward. utilizing various media outlets, and that's one of the tough things in this area. There are no newspapers really, I mean, that to speak of, that are, quote, central to Hamilton and Wenham, but to take advantage of the ones that are available, like the Salem Evening News is one that we do send things out. Working with our human resources person, Allison Cataldo, to develop an effective employee communication plan and really look at ways to engage the teachers too. I mean, one of the things now in walking through the building, you know, teachers are having a tough time. It's a tough time of year. It's just one of those kind of grind points in the school year. And, you know, to be able to communicate with them and also to engage with them both ways, you can kind of keep tabs on that and make some shifts as you move through the school year. Timely and accurate communication is always a plus in your communications. We're looking at a marketing group to train our administrators during their summer retreat this year that will help them to understand what are some good ways to communicate. How can you communicate differently? How can you improve your communication at your building level? And also, the leadership team, you know, added this piece about taking advantage of the skills of high school kids, and sometimes maybe middle school kids too, that may be interested in those types of things that can help to kind of deliver the message and work with high school principals or building leaders. Cross-cultural communication strategies, we really have been committed to finding ways to communicate with our families whose first language is not English. We're currently translating into 11 languages automatically, even on demand on our website. You can go up and switch into any of those 11 languages. We monitor those languages consistently through Stacy Busick's office to understand if a new family comes in, say, I'll use Korea as an example from Korea. Do we have that language in our database? Can we get everything translated the way all of our other documents are? And generally, we can reach out to our vendor for our website and get that installed within an hour or two. So those types of things are really just kind of keeping an eye on how we're communicating with our families. I mean, I get a copy of my weekly in 12 languages, English and 11 others every week in my mailbox, and it's kind of interesting just to see and hope. And, you know, I've told the story before when one of Ben Schurston's parents said, you know, I really feel included in the school community because your email comes to me in my language. So I think that's an important piece of the puzzle for us, and as our L populations continues to grow and shift, it'll be continuously important. I really wanted to put out some, you know, ideas about the tone of how we do things, but also how we brand things. The consistency of branding is not there yet, and we are working on that. You probably, you know, if you go into schools, you start to see more of, quote, our brand. But, you know, in talking with the leadership team, we want to take the work that Amy's going to do and spread that across the community. Again, both in school, inside the school family, if you will, and outside. Youth sports is the best example. In the school district, the Generals is really a name consistent with high school kids, but it's also consistent with youth sports. So it's kind of interesting. Even though each of our elementary schools has their own, quote, brand, if you will, or their own mascot, you know, the Cardinals, the Bulldogs, and the Eagles, they're still Generals, and you know, it's one of those things like, how do we grow that and help to make the connections? Because kids and outside agencies have already made that connection. Now how do we do it within ourselves? So some guidelines there. Different types of communications we use, and again, we would examine this annually just to check and see where we're at, what we can do. There's always new technologies coming out. And then this is the area where we would drop in Amy Quimberger's information in here. And then I really wanted to standardize some of the things like email signatures within the district. I mean, right now there is no requirement. You can put whatever you want in your email signature, and I think that's important to manage as our part of our brand. So really trying to make it very specific. This is what you can have in your email signature, and maybe standardize that across the district. I think we have the ability to do that automatically. And then also really keeping the disclaimer that we've talked a lot about in the past few years to make sure we have it right, but keeping it out front on our websites, on our documents, and anything that we print. So making sure that that's included anywhere that we're publishing documents for our district. And then really trying to use digital communications. One of the things that's also being worked on this year is the technology plan, which will bring us an updated acceptable use guideline set, which is currently, I think it's 10 years old. The last time it was ever updated. So Alan is currently working on that, and we'll have that by the end of this school year, along with our technology plan for the next 5 years. And then crisis and threat management. We talk a lot about this with the leadership team. A couple leadership team meetings ago, you know, we walked into the room and it was like, okay, write a letter. This just happened. Write a letter to your families right now. So come into the room, write a letter. What are you going to include? What are the important pieces of information you need to get out? What do you need to know? Who are you going to communicate with? How are you going to communicate it? When do you call me? When do you call the police? So those are conversations we've had at the leadership team level, and I think it's important to keep it in this plan so that stuff stays front and center. And the communication piece is also, I tried to think what this would look like in the plan, which I found hard to do. Communication also includes like first responders. So when we have our radios that we have in our schools, we have the ability with some of our radios to communicate with the police and fire directly through our school-based radios. Some of us, principals, secretaries, and custodians and nurses have the ability. But one thing we learned, and especially at the high school, middle school complex, the communication there is sometimes spotty depending on where you are. If you're in the gym and you're in the main office, you're gonna have trouble with the radio. Tom recently secured a new repeater antenna for the high school, middle school that's being installed. So it's, again, part of the communication plan, but isn't necessarily here, but it's part of our conversations about how to continue to work with the local agencies to continue to improve communications. God forbid we have to respond to something terrible within our buildings. And then really moving into some of the policies, I wanted to try to drop the policies that we have in place right now, so that people are aware of them and they know where to go and how to, you know, kind of find things out, including you know, just how do we relate to the community? What are the goals at the school committee level? How do we deal with public complaints? You know, things like that. So this is my first crack at it. I was hoping maybe everybody could review it and give me some feedback, and then as Amy continues her work, we'll add it and mesh it in with this plan so that we have a finalized plan that really gives us a good foundation to move forward. And then you kick off the school year by saying, okay, here's how we communicate in the district. Here's the expectations for email. Here are the expectations for social media. You know, you put that right out there. Kids, staff, everything, right up front. Here it is. So this supports that when we say this is a school committee document, this is an expectation of the committee for the entire district, and then grow it from there. I think we almost have to review it annually to say, okay, what's changed, what's new and exciting, what types of things can we take better advantage of, and again, it's just talking to the community, like what are people using? It changes super fast, super fast. So.
All right. Thank you. Questions, comments?
I have a question.
Yep.
Are we ensuring that all of our communications are ADA compliant?
Good question. We should probably add that in here. Yeah.
Okay. Forgive me, because this is what I do. I pick apart communication plans. So in terms of reaching outside audiences, I know there's a lot of focus on reaching internal audiences, which I think is a fantastic focus. One suggestion would be to maybe do an audit or some kind of inventory of other, you know, whether we love them or hate them, Facebook groups or Nextdoor, or are there places where people are convening, like the Hamilton Wenham Library newsletter, or like what are the resources, the places where we can reach beyond our school audience, and maybe having a list, because I know we don't have a newspaper. Another possibility is sending out a survey to internal audiences and asking what are some external things you follow, like what are your, you know, do you read what are you reading? Where are you? What groups are you a part of? What newsletters do you get? What are you participating in the community? I think that would give us a great idea of how to reach external audiences. Because I agree completely with the goal of branching out beyond people that have an investment in the school with kids in the school. We need to branch out beyond that. And my other comment or / question, but it looks like you addressed it in the end, is having making sure like whoever's running the social media accounts, like there's a policy for how you address complaints and there's a policy for how you address trolls. And does someone just have a question, or is someone being offensive and harassing on the school website or on the school Facebook page or the school X, Twitter, whatever account, or Instagram account? So having a policy that says, okay, we can delete this comment, or this is how we're going to respond to these negative comments, because they can get out of control, I'm sure, as you know. So just these like minutia to think about.
Yeah, we're in pretty good shape with the acceptable use policy. It covers
Oh, great.
the district and anything that you do on the district networks. The hard part is always the outside, when the outside.
Well, it's the
comes
outside
in.
people I'm thinking about. So, someone's managing the Instagram account and there's an irate parent maybe violating HIPAA rules, or like, who knows, going off in the comments. How do we deal with that? What's the appropriate response to that? What's the, a policy around that? And that might end up coming back to us. I mean, I don't know. But that I'm more concerned about, people from the outside making comments that we then have to deal with, or not us, but whoever's managing the social media account has to deal with, or getting a DM, a direct message that's, what happens when you get a direct message about something.
Yeah. And we definitely have
Yeah,
protocols
you have
now,
a lot of protocols in
because
place.
we deal with it fairly
Yeah.
regularly, unfortunately, with kids and adults. But when you start to look at, like, our policy on social media is pretty specific, especially for kids and adults. Like, these are the things, you can't follow this. As a teacher, you can't follow kids. You can't do this. You can't. So those types of things, I think, really need to be underscored
Yeah.
annually, as we do. In the beginning of every year, we do all these mandatory trainings, and one of them is not about the policy on social media. Well, guess what happens in August of 2024? That's going to be part of our training, to be able to make sure everybody understands, like, you're held responsible. This policy
Yeah.
is something that you're going to be held responsible for, so.
And communication, is a double-edged sword. So it's like, the more you communicate, the more blowback, feedback, comments you're going to get. So just, I'm all about communicating, but just making sure that we have the procedures and safeguards in place for the people that are managing this that might get overwhelmed.
I think the important part, too, is the technology new plan that's being developed now, along with the acceptable use, triggers a whole new kind of review of, okay, these are the policies we have. Are we really up to date with our expectations within our technology plan and within our acceptable use policies?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can cover a lot of ground, but it's got to be reviewed. I mean, I think the last review of the tech policy was 2014, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
We all know technology changed last night. Like, whatever I was using yesterday might be different today. So I think, that's an important piece of the puzzle too, like really staying up with it and reviewing these plans every couple of years to make sure that we know, I think you have a 5-year technology plan, that might be too long. It's maybe a 3-year technology plan based on what we know about what's up and coming with AI. We're trying to address that within this plan. Like, what does that look like, so that now we can start to have that conversation here with the committee, so that'll be kind of our next adventure, if you will, once we get that plan.
But no, I think it's great. I think it's great.
Trent?
I really think that it's a well-crafted document. I particularly like the areas where you're focusing on voice and tone of communications, because I think that's where communication succeeds or fails. The only constructive comment that I have is it's pretty straightforward to see how this would be a guideline document for people within the district or within the schools communicating outward. I struggle to see a little bit under like the target audience where it says the folks here are both audiences and communicators. Just struggle to see a little bit how like a parent or a student would feel governed by these guidelines. And so maybe some clarity of where, like, if these are guidelines where, you know, if somebody is consistently communicating in a way that is not consistent with them, they might, you know, have a conversation, or there might be a response to that, that it's just really clear where that line is.
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine a volunteer being held to the same branding, you know, expectations of a school principal, for example.
Thank you.
I have a comment, along the same, not along the same lines, but about the same part, or just a suggestion.
Yeah.
When you have guidelines, I'm looking under voice and tone of district communications. These are all fantastic guidelines. I think they are really appropriate for the district. I would provide examples in your final document, just because some of them are a little subjective. So this happens often in like a brand book. You would have 2 paragraphs next to each other that communicate the same idea, but show, you know, one uses 4 exclamation points and one doesn't, you know, and you
Yep.
can X one out. And it sounds simple, but it's just an easy way to help unify the way people use these guidelines. But this is great. The whole thing is so good, minus the red part where my part is missing.
No, but you have, I mean.
It's coming.
You had you had plenty of more time. You
I
few
have more
months.
time.
Plenty of time. I had the shorter deadline.
Other people? No? David?
I promised to read it in depth and get back to you.
Yeah, definitely.
I just,
Send me any commentary. It's, like I said, this is the first draft of trying to gather information and put it together and make it make sense for our district, so I think it's one of those things that I'm gonna put in my weekly, just to say, here's a draft, I'd love some feedback from people outside, and I know we have people involved in communications outside in the community that may chime in on it, so I mean, every little bit I think is gonna help to get it better.
so I did have a question, I guess, about the crisis and threat management
Yep.
portion. I know that we have sort of, or I don't know what they are, but I feel like we have all kinds of internal procedures for,
Seat in my car.
what was that?
It is.
All the, what, threat procedures?
Never know when you need it.
Never know when you need it. Well, I guess that's what I'm saying, is that I don't know that they all need to be detailed here. I know that they're all, but I'm wondering, or I guess I'm sort of wondering, like, to me, this didn't read like a sort of flow chart about like what's the chain of communication in the midst of a threat crisis. I didn't feel like I got that very specifically here, and that was one of the meetings that I attended at the MASC conference, was about that, and it was superintendents and principals that talked about when their district had experienced various threats, and they talked about communication. And this is not me looking for this specifically to be in here, but I just, from my own point of view, like, one of the things, because I was at the MASC conference, so it was focused on school committees, but one of the things they said was, as an example, in the midst of a crisis, you don't want each member of the school committee to be calling the superintendent. You want to have a plan for, like, the school committee all calls me or Julia, you know, like, and it really might be, like, I'm not really joking. It might be Julia, because Julia is our communication person. Like, we might, but like, it would be good for us to know, like, that the superintendent is, or his designee is only going to be speaking to one person on the school committee. And that, I only use that as an example because I'm just thinking about, like, all the number of ways that information need to flow so that you're not repeating and, so, anyway, so that's just a thought.
So outside of this, we're actually working on updating our crisis management plan. We have to do it, we have to submit it to the state every 3 years, and our latest submittal will be in September of 2024. So Gina Bertelli, the school SRO, has been really good working with the principals. We're trying to really make sure we have our ducks in a row, including things like letters already drafted for certain events, because it is hard to sit and try to get your thoughts together when your emotions are running high and you're trying to manage your building and you're wondering where everybody is and, you know, why is this on smoking over here, or whatever may be happening. And we're trying to kind of hone in on some of these things that, okay, these things will help, but they'll also help in other ways. Like we could write a letter, but you could use parts of that letter to write a different letter for something else. So part of that is our crisis plan. Like, each school has the teams, so they immediately open up so I'll use the example of the high school. We had that bomb threat earlier in the year. Brian Menegoni immediately opened up his manual and he says, okay, it says, this is while I was driving to the high school, it says to do this, this, and this. I said, okay, go. You know, so he already started it while I'm shooting from my office to the high school, and as I get there, police and fire show up. So, you know, it's good to have those things in place. And, you know, we had, I can't remember if it was last meeting, it might have been 2 meetings ago, leadership team with that exercise in what are you going to do, how are you going to communicate, to whom, when. And we talk a lot about what happens if the principal goes down, who's next in charge, what happens if X happens. So it's really trying to figure out who's on your team in your building that you can count on, what's their role. Some people are going to be doing kind of that counseling work, and other people could be doing the heavy triage work, while other people, like your custodian, could be literally in charge of opening and closing doors for first responders. So really, the next 5-6 months is really going to be focused on getting our plan together, cleaned up, I should say, and updated for that submission in September. And I'll bring it before the committee before we do it. I just have to figure out how to do that, because it's not all something we want out publicly, but
Right.
it's definitely there. We all have it. We all, you know, rely on it. It just, you know, it's every 3 years the state requires us to update it and submit it. And that includes everything, like how do you communicate? What types of radios are you using? You know, what are the contact numbers of X, Y, and Z people? So there's a lot involved in it.
Is it digital or is it paper?
Both.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's both.
And I wasn't, that was sort of my point, is I wouldn't expect it to all of that in detail to be here, but
Yeah,
it
no.
would, and, you know.
But that's a good point. Like, I don't know that that's addressed the school committee communication line.
Right. Well,
Right,
again,
that's a
I was
good
in a very specific meeting, and
that's a good
I'll
point.
tell you, that it's a good example because it's actually not a terrifying example. A principal had a situation in which they had some sort of a gas leak, and they evacuated the building, and I think the number was 30 children were experiencing some dizziness or headache or whatever, but they were outside, they'd evacuated the building. You know, the police arrived, and over the police radio, one of the police officers said, we have 30 casualties. Because casualties means people who are experiencing some difficulties. But these were students who basically had headaches and were now out in the fresh air. But that got out into the public.
Oh, my God.
And so it was, the reason I was in this meeting was about communications, like how to manage that communication, which is now in the public. So, you know, that like now, even though the situation is actually under control and not, you know, still a difficult situation, we've got to get everybody home from school and everything. Anyway, the point is, you have to have a communication plan in place, and that was brought up because all the school committee members were calling the superintendent to say, I want to know what's going on. So, anyway,
You know, it's important to know, too, that we work with our first responders on the communication plan for response. who does what, when, like, as soon as the police chief's on the grounds of a school, they're in charge of everything. You know, the principal's initially in charge till I get there, then the chief of police comes or the chief of fire comes, they're in charge, they take over. But even from there, we do tabletop exercises with the first responders, and those tabletop exercises allow us to say, how do we respond with the bus company when we need 12 buses in 40 minutes or less? How do we respond with DPW and the fire department when we need to block Bay Road from incoming traffic to keep parents from coming, say, to the high school or middle school or wherever? So those places, those conversations have all been had, and everybody knows what their role is. So it's part of kind of the sub-piece of this communication plan that people don't see, but those things are part of our conversations at the district level with the first responder groups.
This might be getting in the weeds a little bit, but do we have in our classrooms for our teachers, like the flip book of the emergency plan? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, we used to do that,
Yeah.
and the harder part was really getting people to remember to take it with them if they say they left the building.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of an interesting thing, because even like reunification, when you think of, okay, I have 450 kids, I got to get them out of the building, then I got to sort them some way to move them to whatever your evacuation site. So we have designated evacuation sites for each building. How do I sort them, get them there? Who's responsible for which group and when? Where do they go? If you can't come out, I'll use the middle school, for example. If you can't come out the front door of the middle school, where do they go? Where do they reassemble, and who's organizing them? So those pieces of the puzzle are all in place, but really run by certain levels of people. Like you have your crisis team, then you have kind of your sub-teams. Like the best example I can give just from my own memory of the high school plan is curriculum leaders. They are now sub-leaders of, you're gonna take the A through Ds, social studies person's gonna take the D through G, blah, blah, blah. So all of those pieces are in place when something happens.
Yeah. I just really liked having them in a classroom when you know what you're supposed to do for a fire or a bomb threat or whatever, but it's nice to know when you're panicking and you can just go to that chart and like flip to the
Yeah,
right page.
yeah.
Just
We're
know what
looking
to
at
do.
an app
Okay.
we can use with our teachers that has the opportunity to like post things like that on there.
Okay.
But also the ability to have a panic button.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to figure out like if that makes sense or not for us in the district. It's one of those questions you always hope you never have to be in that situation, but rather be safe than sorry. There's a number of companies that do that.
Yeah.
And one of those apps literally allows you to put on all of the things that you do in different responses. You know, what if you smell gas?
Yep,
What do you do?
exactly.
So really trying to streamline it and again, take advantage of technology as much as we can.
Good.
Okay,
Cool.
thank you.
Thanks.
All right, we good?
So anything that you read through this and you say, hey, this is something to think about, just send it my way. I'm really taking all comments and queries. I think it's important to just get this out there and make sure that people see it and can talk about it and chime in on it as well.
Okay. All right. Next up is more communication, which is up ahead of at what are in the past. We have typically created a one-page communication to have available at town meeting and ahead of town meeting to explain our budget. So I'm putting that out there and seeing if there's any thoughts and interest on how we want to approach that this year. Yeah.
I'm happy to make one if you would like.
Um,
I'm happy to not make one.
Did you say you wanted to do it?
I didn't know if you got my hand.
We
I
can
put in my time. I'm happy to hand that over.
do rock, paper, scissors.
Does that, I'll ask, does that feel like something that is a doable project for you?
Yeah, that's an easy one. I have questions though about, do we get feedback from the public that it's useful? I know no one would call and be like, this is a beautiful piece of design work, but
I don't, no. I
You'd
don't
miss
think
it
we
if
get
it was
any-
gone.
but- What was
It would
that?
ask us about it if it was gone,
Yeah.
but we've not heard this change my mind, or
No.
I have not personally.
But I will have to say, this is just anecdotal, but at town meeting, people certainly are looking at
They are.
it and,
Definitely are,
you
yeah.
know, like, and looking at it and,
Yeah, I'm,
so it's, I mean, and it's really
The
meant
first
to,
time some people have seen
What was
the
that?
school budget,
Help her with
some of the people at town meeting.
yeah.
yeah, it's meant to be, it's meant to be just a, clear and informative document about the budget, and so, yeah, I think people do use it that way. So, and it is a document, if I recall, it needs to get brought here where we can approve it
Yep.
ahead of town meeting, so, you can work with,
Yeah.
Yeah, we want to get it by that second meeting in March, probably, right?
yeah, we need to have it by,
Meeting in March.
Yeah, if you can just send me,
Moderator need to approve it first.
Yeah,
though.
that's why, because I
oh, right.
have to send it the week before to each of the moderators to approve it.
So we want to approve it here first and then to the
right, well, let's see,
moderators.
town
We do it
meeting
at the same time.
is, hold on,
It's
April-
Sorry, April
April
1st.
1st.
Is it? No.
I think-
No.
6th.
No, I already did
April
make
6th?
one. It's the first Saturday.
It's April 6th. is the
April
town
6th is town meeting.
Yep.
So, but you want to have it, yeah, if we had it on March 21st,
That gives us time
that
to
would time to approve it here.
changes
It's almost 2 weeks before it, so.
and then have it
Yeah.
approved. They always ask for it a week ahead of time.
Yeah, I don't think they'll put in, because they put it on the table there, I think they have to approve it.
Okay.
All right, I think we probably need a motion.
I moved that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School District allows Amy to create a budget one-sheet
Flyer
flyer
for town meeting.
for town meeting.
Second.
Or anything else you want me to say?
Second by Julia.
All right, just trying to help.
All right, is there any further questions on that? Discussion? All right, looks like we're ready to vote. All those in favor? Is unanimous of the 6 members present, and the motion passes. And thank you very much.
Sure. Happy to help.
All right,
Just plug it in. Let's knock this off.
okay. Vinny is going to wave his arm around.
gonna turn all the
lights are going to
lights
come
on.
on, and then we're going to have some more budget thoughts.
Holy hell.
Look at that.
Didn't we just do this
Kinda fun.
36 hours ago?
We were just here.
I know, we did just do this.
We were,
It'll be really quick,
yes, we were just here.
comfortable.
Has anything changed since Tuesday?
That's really all I'm gonna say.
That's a short presentation. Okay, we're next.
Nothing's changed since Tuesday or the last presentation I gave. In the exhibit tonight is a 51-slide PowerPoint that breaks down the entire budget by DAC and by DESI category. It takes all of the previous 4 or 5 presentations and kind of puts them all together. It's very detailed and breaks out dollar by dollar and category by category all of the changes year over year. I don't think it's worthwhile to go through the 51 slides. I was really just going to jump down to the last couple and just review the major changes and then give you guys opportunity to ask any more questions that you may have. Just to point out, obviously, year over year, our biggest changes relate to salaries, our collective bargaining agreements, and our insurance increases. A couple other big ones is the new ESP contract that changed this past year, and our Essex retirement appropriation also went up over 10%. Those are kind of the biggest drivers year over year. We tried to match a lot of those with some decreases, as you've seen over previous presentations. Overall, we accumulated up to $2 million worth of reductions. The biggest one being the excess and deficiency offset. If you exclude that amount, it really represents about $1.2 million in reductions that we try to incorporate into this budget. In addition to that, we did reduce our overall staffing by 6.5 FTEs, or roughly 2% of our overall staffing pool from FY24 to FY25. So as I mentioned last week, today was really just a time to ask any additional questions if you had any, and to remind everyone that next week is our off-cycle week where we do vote on the final budget. There is a public hearing that night at 6:30, followed by the budget vote. So this is really kind of your time to ask any additional questions. I've gone over this in depth multiple times, so if you don't have any questions, that's great. It means I went over it enough, but I at least wanted to give you the opportunity and present the exhibits if anyone had any questions.
Anyone? Okay,
It's a good thing.
thank you.
So don't forget next Thursday.
6:30.
6:30, next Thursday.
No, it will be late. Tell her. Having a parent-teacher conference.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Okay. All right. Committee reports. Capital Finance? That's you guys.
I guess I can give the report. We met, and I don't know when our next meeting is off the top of my head.
It's March 11th.
Okay. We met, approved minutes, talked about the capital improvement plan, and then decided on the next meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Anybody have questions for Capital Finance? Okay. Policy?
I know it.
Policy is meeting next Monday. I postponed last
Monday the 5th?
Monday the 5th.
Okay.
I think it's 1 to 2.
Yeah, February 5th, right?
The 5th, isn't it?
What? I thought it was February 5th?
February, yeah, sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Monday.
Yeah.
Okay. Negotiations?
We actually have a couple things to talk about, don't we? We have an upcoming meeting. We've been meeting with the, excuse me, office personnel, and things have been going really, really good. We have a strategy meeting on the 6th, and our next meeting is on the 12th with both parties, and hopefully we'll be wrapping that up soon. Like I said, things have been going well. Didn't we want to talk about,
You want me to?
yeah,
The missed posting?
because it,
Yep, so I actually had it noted for my chair's report, and I was like,
Okay.
oh, I don't know whether David wants to address it here. So if you're willing, I can.
yeah.
So negotiations, we had an open meeting law issue, posting issue, in which we had 2 meetings, which were both just strategy meetings, not meetings that we were meeting with the union. They were strategy meetings that were inadvertently not posted. The dates for those meetings were on January 17th and January 23rd. We did not discover the missed postings until after the event. I contacted MASC, Eric contacted MASS, and I contacted the Division of Open Government to consult, because this is an open meeting law concern. The Division of Open Government was super helpful, actually. And they advised me that there is no way to, erase an error. There's no magic fix. They did make recommendations about what to do. One was make a public acknowledgement of the error. Doing that now. 2 was to repost the meeting. So when we meet on our meeting that is already posted, which is upcoming on the 6th, that agenda, the first agenda item says open meeting law, posting issue on those dates. so that, you know, a member of the public would know that there, you know, there had been that, and those, and it will be reflected in those new minutes that, you know, that those dates were missed. And then to revote and rediscuss anything that we voted on. Because of the nature of negotiations, the only portion of the meeting that would have been open to the public anyway would have been the approval of the minutes, because the meeting is fully an executive session where we're discussing strategy as we prepare to negotiate. But we will, I've put it back on the agenda, so we will revote on the minutes that we approved. So, does anyone have any questions about that?
No.
Very thorough.
Yep. Yeah, again, kudos to the Division of Open Government. They were very helpful. David?
So, all right, the secretary minutes, as I emailed you last night, I just got these minutes this morning, and I knew today was gonna be too busy to get through it. So I have a list of minutes here, but I have not been able to pick Julia's brain to figure out what her notes mean. So they are completely
I sent him a mishmash
for me to
of
get.
notes.
So I'm hearing that maybe you'd like to give the secretary report at our next meeting?
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I do
we need to.
have this stuff now, and I do think I understand what's going on, so I just want to check in with Julia.
And I feel like it has not been updated because some minutes have been approved since I
Yeah,
sent that
and
to you.
So I could touch base with you now,
Yeah.
too, and
Okay.
then put it together
All right.
in my messy notes, so.
All right, so we'll.
Thank
we'll-
you.
Well, thank you all for
With me.
tackling that, and I do believe that the more we talk about it, the more those minutes seem to get done, so, so thank you. We'll look forward to that on the 8th.
Well, it'll be riveting.
Okay, anybody have any questions on any of the committee reports?
No.
Okay, Eric, to you.
Really quickly, I'll be presenting next week at 2 different places. We'll be doing the COA in Hamilton, presenting the school building project as a continuation of our quest to get information out. And that's kind of a luncheon date, if you will. We'll go over and intrude on their lunch, and several of us will just be there to give them some handouts, walk them through the things that we've done along the way, and help them to understand the process moving forward. And then we're going to do the first full elementary staff meeting on Wednesday, where we go through the entire process with all the elementary staff. There have been some people that are on the committee, some people that went on the tours, so now this is for everybody to really see, okay, this is where we're going, and this is the direction it's taking. We did hit our milestone of the PDP submission to the state MSBA. 1,380-page document was submitted to the MSBA, which outlines just about everything we've done since we've hired basically all the way back to town meeting vote. Town meeting vote, from that point on, everything has to be documented in certain ways, you know, checking the boxes for the MSBA. JCJ and our PMA, our OPM were great in getting all that information together and getting it submitted on time, so we have met that submittal. The MSBA has acknowledged that submittal. What they do now is they'll review the document. They will add commentary in it, which we take that commentary and we use it to build the next phase, PSR phase, which will be really shrinking down from 15 options down to 1 option. Really, like, this is the direction we're going in. So by May, we'll submit to the state again to say this is the direction it looks like we're going in, and then the state will begin that process of the next module, which will be schematic design, starting to get really tight on the reality of the numbers, what the reimbursements will look like. So this is an interesting phase coming up, and I appreciate the work of JCJ and the architects and PMA. They have been everywhere with me. They all come, a bunch of them come from Boston, and another group of them come from Connecticut, and they are here anytime I ask them to be, which I think is important for the process, for them to be seen, and they can answer some of the more complex and technical questions. So those are the things going on right now. Quick field update, the field project, the facilities, athletic facilities improvement project is currently sitting in the planning board. There have been a number of meetings with the planning board. We had to outlay $15,000 to hire a third-party person to basically review the documents that we submitted to the planning board for the project. And so the site documents, including things like the concession stand and the lighting, anything that leaves the ground. And then the second thing we had to submit was the stormwater plan, which was what happens with stormwater as it flows off of the property, basically. So those things have been submitted. The third-party reviewer has reviewed them and publicly presented his review with some adjustments that were made by our designer, Gail. They have made those adjustments. This Tuesday, there's an open session coming up for people to speak their opinion about the project. They have kind of a listening hearing on Tuesday night. Then they'll have a deliberation at their meeting 2 weeks after that, and then they come to a final decision a couple weeks after that. Just so people are aware, I am moving forward with the bidding process. Our project is really covered by the Dover Amendment, which allows educational agencies to generally bypass planning boards in their process. So we are currently working with our attorney to make sure that we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's, but the pieces that we can move forward with, we'll move forward with, like bidding, so that we can stay on track with the project. And I think that's part of we've had this plan for a year. It's just planning board, we thought would be 3 meetings. It's probably gonna be 7 by the time it's all done, 6 or 7. So, we're trying to balance that and really kick it off in time so that we can keep up with what we budgeted for. Like, we budgeted in this budget some changes for the spring sports season, like paying other places for our kids to go play. And then in the fall, same thing. In this budget that you will be hopefully approving next week, same thing. So we're trying to stay on that plan so that our budget stays in line with that as well, because it's just, if we don't, it's gonna get messy, and Vinny doesn't want that hassle. So, but things are generally moving forward. We're just kind of going through the processes, and we'll wait to see the direction the planning board takes us. But like I said, we are working with our attorney to move the process forward under what they call the Dover Amendment, which basically gives anybody with educational use the right to just do the project and move forward. So we're trying to do both at the same time to make sure things are taken care of. That's all I have.
All right.
Question. Yeah. How hard did we look at the real alternative to the turf in terms of moving to a grass field? And I understand that the understanding at the time when the decision was made that grass fields could not take the workload that is anticipated on the turf field, and what I'm hearing now from multiple sources is that they don't believe that's true. They think there are ways to have turf fields without rotation that can handle that. So I'm just wondering, since we were asked by last week to consider reconsidering, I wonder whether there would be a lot less friction in the community if that turned out to be true, that we really could, and that there wasn't a cost penalty for doing it that way. But you've obviously gone through this in way more depth than I have. So, what's where do you sit on at least doing the due diligence, if it hasn't already been done, based on current technology, and being able to switch out, not destroy the whole project, but just swap out the turf for grass?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go back to the recreation report that was done, I believe, in 2015, and you and I talked about this. At that time, there was an overuse issue, and here we are 8 or 10 years later, and the overuse has probably tripled across the towns with youth sports and school sports. And we've been hearing about these organic fields, and I'll use Marblehead as an example. People pointed to Marblehead to say, oh, they have an organic field and it's great, and they use it for everything. Well, Marblehead has a turf field to offset their organic field use. So when they rotate their organic field off, you can't use it, they put more teams on their turf field. So right now, there's the project that we've put forward to the people and that have voted for by the people in the community is where we're moving forward with. I mean, that was the vote of the towns during town meeting. So I don't know that it's even in our purview to go back and change anything, considering what we already presented and what was accepted by the communities.
Yeah, I guess in revisiting it, the health board unanimously said don't do it.
That's not true.
Well,
That is not what the Board of Health said.
I thought it said do not use PRAF.
It did not say, do not do it.
No, it
Just
said,
what you just said.
okay, sorry, let's restate it. They said don't use PRAF anywhere.
It's still not what they said, but the reality of the PFAS argument is, again, there are no codes,
PFAS,
no
sorry.
laws, no rules that prohibit the installation of the turf fields. The measurements, if you will, that are built into the contract are really to meet the current allowable measurements. So the best example I can use is the newest field that was installed around here is Manchester Essex put 2 turf fields in, and as part of their contract, they happen to use the same designer we did. They are testing the materials before installation. They had to do that. That was the stipulation of it. And their materials came back at or below the expected rates of PFAS. And again, that's the only thing I can say about it. I'm not a scientist. I don't know anything about it, but I know within our contract, we've already promised that we would do the appropriate testing and then meet whatever the current standards were. And the standards right now are the same as they were for Manchester Essex. I know there's a bill in the House. I don't know where that's going to go. It's currently in committee, but we'll see in a couple weeks when they come back to work.
Yeah, it's in the queue for the third reading. If it gets the third reading, then it's almost a dead certainty it will go through.
Yeah.
But there are other towns have banned going with turf fields.
So I'm
So
gonna just hop in and other people can discuss. I just want to say, because I have discussed with some members of the public, that if we, just in the abstract, right, there's an issue. School committee debated that issue. We discussed and debated it. We voted on it. We voted to bring this before the people. We brought the issue forward at both town meetings. The issue at hand, which you're bringing up, was actually discussed and debated at both town meetings, both in the superintendent's presentation and again by people who stood up at both town meetings and brought up the issue. And then the people voted. On any issue in which all of those things have occurred, I feel like it's important to be cautious about saying we should be questioning that after all of those things have occurred, that the people voted at town meeting. And so that's I'm just going to...
No, that's very important. But I guess the question we should ask ourselves is, did we have complete knowledge? Did the voters get a full disclosure of all of the decision-making factors?
I'll reference back to what
And I don't know that.
to what I said earlier, right? In this is a perfect example of where I said, we, as a board, hire the experts to go and do that research for us. We, did do that. We had gone through the diligence. We did, have public forums, and then it was voted through with all diligence done of the latest, and greatest. Now, today, there might be more information than yesterday, but we went through the entire process. We hired the experts to actually go through the process.
Who were the experts, sorry?
What's that?
Who were the experts?
Gale Associates?
Okay.
Can I just add or ask a clarifying question? So at this point in this project, we don't know yet what the infill material is going to be, right? Like there
But we have made some specifications
I
about it.
publicly stated that I would not use crumb rubber infill.
Right.
Which is the primary issue or infiltrator of the PFAS conversation. That's where it comes from. Now, Manchester Essex chose to use that infill and met the testing requirements with it. It was actually tested. We're leaning towards something like Ipswich used, which is an EPDM, which is little rubber balls. They are non-toxic.
sand, right? Like
No,
sand,
the little tiny rubber
like silicone?
little balls. I don't know exactly what they're made of, but they're non-toxic.
Yeah.
So, which is a priority of, again, the project and the expectation of the contract, the bidding contract.
Yeah, I just wanted to
Yep.
clarify that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the challenge with the, you were pointing out the measurements and analysis supposedly met whatever thresholds there were. But the problem is those thresholds are being lowered. And there's a large, apparently, no, I didn't know this, a large number of elements to that whole family of PFAS that they can't measure. So there's a known unknown in deploying this that also should be considered. And I'm not taking a strong position either way, but I just get the feeling from the feedback that I'm getting that there's more to this story than we understood at the time of those votes.
Approximately how many emails would you say you've received on this topic?
Emails? No, I talk to people. It's been conversational.
I can tell you all the people I've spoken to.
Yeah, I mean, look,
over the
I had
years.
someone approach me at the library,
Much different message.
completely out of nowhere.
I do want to say though, I mean, if you really want to have that discussion with people about sort of the, knowns versus unknowns, the way I like to sort of say things to people is we have gone through this process, right? And it was something that was really important to me because when this process started, my son was still a patient at Dana-Farber, right? So there was something like the idea of actually putting in a field was, very much on my mind, what we were doing, and what we're putting in. As we go through this process, we are building a field that we know what is going to be involved in, right? What this field is going to be made of, right? We get to control that. Now, when we have fields that are unusable, right, which is our current situation, we have to rent other fields. We rent other towns,
Turf field.
turf fields, and we have no control over what those fields are built off of. But we have no argument from anyone in town saying we shouldn't have our kids playing on those turf fields, right? Well, it's something we have no control over. We're paying extra money to have our kids go play in different towns because our fields are unusable, right? On fields that we have no idea what their infill structure is, what's based, what the construction is like underneath, right? Or any of those variables, right? At least here, we can control those variables to the best of our ability. So, if you want to have that known versus unknown argument, there's your argument.
Okay,
I take your
all
point.
right, we ready to move on?
I have a question. It's not another fun topic. Sorry. I promise there's a question in here. But as background, as many of you know, on January 18th, a middle school teacher at Miles River posted an inappropriate social media post talking about 8th grade girls being on their cycles. It was posted publicly, totally accidentally. That's not the point. For me, and I have received a lot of emails and feedback on this, our goal, our district goal 3, to commit to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, I believe this is in direct violation of it, but my question is, if we as a district are committed to inspiring students, all students, to their full potential, and we're committed to creating a culture of inclusion and belonging, how are we going to rebuild the trust that has been decimated by this post towards, not just 8th grade girls, but towards the entire community? So I guess my question is, where are we with this, just for people that are not in the know? And what are we doing as a district to help rebuild this trust? And I know that's something you're working on, but I thought we should just talk about it publicly.
There's a number of things that have gone on already. Realistically, the issue of dealing with the teacher on the administrative side is one piece of the puzzle, but also making sure that that individual was able to work with the community. Like, okay, here's what happened. I mean, I think I shared the letter with all of you, that the email that went home from the individual teacher and also from the principal. The principal has also been involved in conversations within the classroom with the teacher and the kids, and then continuing to still have conversations with a couple of families who still need some assurances and some understanding. So I think Zach Best has spent a lot of time trying to help people to work through those issues, and in some cases we have, at families' request, moved kids out of that classroom. So
Okay.
a bunch of things going on. It's kind of it's an absolutely unfortunate issue that, accidental or not, this is that whole thing. We just had this conversation about
Well, you
communication.
and I have talked at length about it.
Communication and social media, and and the reality is that this is going to be hard for this individual to come out from under, and I think that person's experiencing it now and really having a tough time wrestling with that as well personally, which is an important part of the process. Like, sorry, you have to figure out ways now to rebuild that trust, and that's going to take time. It's going to take some extra effort beyond I'm a good teacher. It's going to be much more than that. So it's going to take some time. I think Zach's been really good about connecting with families, connecting with individual kids, continuing to ask kids. Like, even up till yesterday, he was continuing to just query with kids, like, how are things going, what's happening. Even some information that we got from other people beyond that, making sure that we investigated to make sure whatever people thought was happening was happening. So there's always this kind of spiraling that happens. Oh yeah, and this happened 3 months ago, and stuff like that comes up. So we address it all, right on, face on. We bring the union in, work with them as well. So following all of our process, state law, the realities of, there's always that first reality of saying, you gotta fire this person, but there are the steps that we have to follow in the state law and in our agreements, our contracts with each of the groups. So we do that. We literally take it out and say, okay, here's what we're gonna do first, we're gonna do second. We work with our union president, and he's also of the mindset of, like, this is unacceptable, and is also taking the approach to continue to spread the word to the entire HWA body, just to say, like, listen, you need to understand that what you post is everybody can see it in some way, shape, or form. Even if you think it's going to 5 people, one of those 5 people could screenshot it and send it to 20 other people. So nothing is personal and private. Don't do it. So he's actually been really good in helping us out to get that word out to other people within the district too, because anybody.
Yeah, and I know you and I agree on this. For me, it's really less about the posting. It's more about the intent of the post and the lack of judgment that it would take to even post that privately, or thinking that thought and even just iterating it publicly. But we have talked about this at length. I just wanted to make sure that the thousands of people, as David said, that are watching this, millions, understand that we are taking this very seriously, and we're not going to tolerate this kind of behavior going forward. I just want that to be very, very clear.
And it's literally a constant conversation. It's not like we're going to talk about this one time. It's a constant conversation, because it's a conversation for principals to have with each of their buildings too, to be able to say, by the way, folks, what you believe is private isn't, and this is kind of weird, but in a restaurant last night, happened to sit near a group of teachers from a different community who were talking way too loudly about
Oh, I have friends
students.
that are teachers.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So it's the same
I'm
type
always
of
like,
thing.
don't post that.
Except on social media, like, don't do it. Like, think about what you're doing and saying, and that's part of the process. Kids will make mistakes with that, and adults do too, and I think we have to address it quickly. We did that immediately as soon as I got, somebody sent it to me pretty quickly, and as soon as I got it, we went right at it that next school day. And, you know, have gone through several iterations, and we still have a follow-up meeting to have later on in this, next week, so.
And I appreciate that we're taking steps to remove children. I know that my daughter personally has had this teacher, and if this happened, and I would have personally removed her from his classroom. So I appreciate that step is being taken. It might sound dramatic and drastic, but anyway, thank you so much.
No,
And that
because
was
there are
my
feelings
question.
involved. There's feelings and emotions involved, and you have to address them all. And there are different levels of, you know, kind of reality for people, and I think that's an important part of the puzzle. Like,
Yeah.
understanding my male perspective is going to be very different than my daughter's female perspective, and certainly, you know, I have to take all that into account. Like, what's the real line here, and then where do we take it? You know.
Thank you.
I appreciate that update, and I just want to say, you know, in regards to our earlier conversation about communication, I think our teachers need to be role models for the students about how to use social media. I know my children who are elementary age are getting a curriculum within media about how to appropriately use social media. One of the things is not to talk about other people. So I really appreciate the follow-up on this. I have a ton of strong feelings about social media, so I'm really happy to hear the conversation is ongoing.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay, on to the chair's report. I have just, did one big part of it already. So just had an update from the town clerks on our school committee election. We have, as of a couple days ago, we had nomination papers that have been pulled by 2 people so far, which is Trent Honda and Jen Carr, and I suspect someone else may have done that. Is that true?
Yes, yes.
And Julia also pulled her papers. So far, we're, that's always exciting to have 3 people for 3 seats. That's exciting. So there are just, so.
Jen, Julia, and Brent.
And Trent, yep,
Trent,
Jen,
sorry.
right, and all of the, so that is all of the seats that are up for election this year. Just to be clear, and I tried to reiterate it again with the town clerks, and I do know that they understand, I just want to make sure you guys, and I know Jen is hopefully going to watch this, it is confusing. We have 2 3-year seats and 1 2-year seat, and anybody is up for any of those, but we
Just carefully
We don't want to end up in a
consider the term that you
situation
want.
where everyone runs for the same seat, unless that's really what you all want to do. So, just putting that out there. Anybody have questions? Oh, nomination papers are available now, if anybody else is interested, and they're available, I believe they're due on the 22nd?
They're due February 22nd for anyone else that wants to run?
Yep, I believe so. Did anybody else have questions about the election?
No, thanks for the update.
Okay. And then the only last thing I wanted to mention is, and I was really glad that Tom mentioned it about the regional agreement. Both towns really sound like they are moving forward. They're making sure that they're taking their votes that they individually feel like they need. It sounds like they're going to take some just confirming votes to go forward, and then potentially they need a conflict of interest vote because they share a law firm.
Correct.
It doesn't involve us. We don't need to worry about that. And I would anticipate we'll hear from them, and then anticipate that the first steps really will be the lawyers sitting down together. But that was helpful to have Tom be thoughtful today when he mentioned the part about, you know, the amount that triggers the capital classification, I guess, process. And I was thinking, you know, I was thinking $25,000 in, you know, whatever, I think it was 1965 or whatever, is a lot different. I think he said $100,000, and I'm going to say, I don't know, that might have been a lot. That might not be enough. But anyway, so something to think about as we move forward. And I think that's all I have. So topics for future meetings?
Oh,
No?
Anyone? Nope.
not yet. Maybe after the subcommittee meeting.
What was that?
I said maybe after the subcommittee meeting.
And yeah, and if you, and always, anyone can always send a topic, send me an email with a topic for future meeting.
Oh, does, Vinny, do you have one?
Dana, is this for the 8th or for the one after?
Just for any future meeting that you want to talk about.
The one after the 8th is a financial forecast, but not
Okay.
the next meeting.
Okay, all right. That's on the 20, yeah. All right.
22?
I think it's,
Thursday is the 22nd,
I think so.
that is, no. It's not the 20, because
Thought we were doing March 7th.
it's March 7th. That's all you.
Sorry. Oh, yeah, that's my
That's,
meeting.
yep, Amy will be chairing that meeting. I
That's
will-
the next one following.
Yep, correct.
Next week, right?
Right.
Yes.
Just making sure.
We have a big break.
Miss you guys.
Aw,
It'll be tough.
sure you will.
Okay,
So I'd like to move a motion.
That's why I was looking at you. Like, where's the
adjourn.
motion?
all right, do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Ooh, that was close. I'm giving it to Julia. Second to Julia at 9:02 PM. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? And is unanimous, and we are adjourned. Thank you.
We almost